symphony of love, unbound. Here in the PNW, we go beyond the sound.
Welcome to the Beyond the Sound podcast. I am your host, John Opina, Divisional Music and Worship Arts Director for the Salvation Army Northwest Division, serving Washington State, Northern Idaho, and Western Montana. I am joined by my co-host,
Keith Almanza.
and today we have a special guest joining us, Lieutenant Colonel Cindy Foley, Divisional Commander and everyone's boss of the Northwest Division. Could you tell the listeners how long you've been the DC here and where you've been beforehand?
My husband Tim and I have been stationed here as the divisional leaders in the Northwest since June of 2021. Previously, I served as the National Secretary for Business Administration at the Salvation Army's national headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. And previous to that, we were the divisional leaders in the Golden State Division, headquartered in San Francisco, and the training leaders at the College for Officers Training in beautiful Rancho Palos Verdes, California. So 19 years in California, but also stationed in Hawaii and the Phoenix area and Oxnard, California. More than a pretty name.
Yeah. Well, it's great. It's always good to have you and to get to know you a little bit more. We always start off with some kind of ranking system. I think in our episode 2, we talked about M&Ms, but knowing that you are an avid baker, it seemed very natural to talk about baking recipes and dishes like that. So could you give us a top 3 of your favorite dishes to make? And we can kind of give a top 3 of what we like to eat, I guess.
Very good. And I think you may, since the two of you have actually taste tested all 3 of these things, I would think that these are probably the things that my neighbors and customers over time would have enjoyed. So in third place, I would say it's newer to my baking repertoire at Christmas and Valentine's Day, which is coming up.
My birthday.
It is a frosted chocolate cake cookie made with buttermilk, so it's really soft and cakey. You can frost it with chocolate frosting, but I think just wonderful vanilla buttercream with appropriate sprinkles is usually a crowd pleaser.
Nice.
People don't think of, chocolate cookies. It's very good. And in second place, I would say my wildly popular Rocky Road cake.
Oh, yes.
Something that my even non-baker, non-cooking mother was famous for. Oh. So, I don't know, it's from a magazine from Houston, Texas, from like 1954 or something. But it is, again, a wonderful buttermilk chocolate cake, and the frosting is like fudge. Would you agree, gentlemen?
Yes.
I don't think I've had that one yet, though.
Oh, where have you been?
I probably am delayed on that email that goes out that says that the bakery is open for business.
Well, we are also out and about a lot, so by the time we get here, there's not a whole lot left.
Or it could be that John and Kat have just never shared with him. That is a possibility.
There is that.
Okay. And in first place, probably could be done any time of year, but famous at Christmas time, the frosted Christmas sugar cookies. Always a hint. My recipe calls for a little cream of tartar. That is the secret, everybody. The recipe is in the 1973 Betty Crocker cookbook called The Luck Sugar Cookies. It's excellent.
All right, Keith, would you like to go first on your top 3 of baking things to eat?
First, I'll say my waistline is furious just listening to this right now because these all sound delicious. Are we saying Colonel Cindy dishes or just any baked good?
Well, if you have experience with Colonel Cindy's baking, or just top 3.
As already mentioned, I've already been sort of not informed when certain things get released. But I will say I think the number 1 for me is going to be the fudge.
I forgot about that. I guess I was thinking baking, but you're right. The fudge is very popular.
It's part of your
repertoire,
your dessert releases. So yeah, I'll say the fudge is top tier for me. I do remember some sort of, I want to say like a coffee cake.
Yes, cinnamon streusel coffee cake comes occasionally.
Man, that was also crazy delicious. Those sugar cookies, though, I did have more than I'd like to admit. those are also going to make my list for sure.
Okay.
Solid list. I would agree. Can't argue with that.
I would go with the fudge, which my wife Catherine would highly agree with. She loves the fudge. We also really love coffee cake, so I forgot about that one. But I think my favorite, just dessert in general, is just peach cobbler.
Yep.
And you do a peach crisp, right? There's a difference between a cobbler and a crisp.
Correct. I call it peach cobbler, but you're right. I prefer a crisp with just a more streusel topping.
Yeah.
With double the peaches. Just, you don't need to go crazy with the topping, but enough.
Yeah.
And must be hot, preferably right from the oven, with a generous scoop of vanilla ice cream.
Yeah. So, my birthday's coming up in 2 weeks, February 14th. So I guess I'll stop by your house for a dessert, a peach crisp.
There you go.
Well, we've just come out of Christmas, and it's always a busy time, but there's always, there's obviously a goal for Christmas, and specifically with kettles. So, if you're comfortable, could you provide a small recap of kettles in our division? Did we meet our goals, and maybe a short blurb on like how those funds raised will be used in our division?
Well, people in our division, or pretty much anybody who knows me, knows I am the Christmas queen. I not only love just Christmas in general, but I love kettles, and I think it's an incredible opportunity. Salvation Army owns Christmas. I've had lots of nonprofits tell me that, with just a bit of jealousy in their voice. And it's, a century-plus tradition that we have where we can be front and center with the community. Gives a wonderful chance for us to tell the story, to invite volunteers and other businesses and organizations to join the Army for that day or that kettle shift. And the funds raised are incredibly helpful to our community, and sometimes the smaller community literally critical. So this year is a tough year. We all knew preparing ahead of time. It's a shorter season. It's the year that Thanksgiving is the latest that it ever is, which means the Christmas season was 5 days shorter. And we did start early. We had some great traditions and plans, to try to offset that. But it was a challenging Christmas. So we did raise a little over $3.4 million, of which I am excited. It is the highest kettle total in the Western Territory, so I'm glad that we retained that title. But we did actually, our goal was to raise more this year than last year despite the shorter season, and we came just slightly short. As of last night, I get a report still, 10 o'clock every night, still 32,000 short. I'm so tempted to just, please somebody put $32,000 in there. But we came very close, so literally less than 1% off, but we did well. Some interesting strategies that we did, we were really prepared this year and had a media strategy and templates and media releases all ready to go, because in those early days of Christmas, we were 50% behind right off the bat. That was not making my day. Yeah. And so where we normally would deploy information to all the media markets across the Northwest around December 10th or so to give an update personalized by corps, what their kettle goal is, what their volunteer hours goal is, and where we are in that, so the community could know, if we, how we needed their assistance in the best way. We actually had to deploy those end of November. Wow. And get the word out that we are off to a slow start, and that literally will impact direct services to people. So we did that. Local communities really rallied around that call. Radio station hosts, TV, newspaper. I believe our coverage for Christmas was up something like 20% this year. So we got that out, and a lot of, again, local radio hosts like checking with us every couple of days to say, how is it going? So we went from 50% down to around mid-December. I think by the 18th, we had closed that gap to about 30% down. Not a great number, but it was showing progress. On December 23rd, that last Monday and Tuesday that we had of the traditional bell ringing week, we had closed it to 4%. And we really made a big push those last couple of days. And as you said, as everything's in now, we're down negative 0.93%.
Oh.
So we're doing good. But a couple of core really stepped up, and all of that media, we had a lot of stations contact us after Christmas to say, hey, we covered your story all season long. What was the end of the story? Where were you? So in a lot of communities, we're able to say, with your generous help, they exceeded their goal and did a great job. A couple at the end of the season, this is real interesting. One was Tacoma, who was still short, I believe, something like $30,000. And Tacoma has a family shelter and a wonderful Hope Market, Client Choice Food Pantry, and other really essential programs. $30,000 makes a big difference in Tacoma. So they decided to put their kettles out another week. And their advisory board and their staff members and volunteers, a lot of people who had rang faithfully all season said, okay, I'll do it again on my Christmas vacation. And they exceeded their goal by going out and ringing another week. And Stacy Blaisdell, their kettle queen there in Tacoma, did an incredible job, as long with some other staff members and the support of their officers and their advisory board that really stepped up. Vancouver, Washington was also down, I think about $40,000, and we got some extra media, and a wonderful person walked in the door and said, I heard the message. I just want to help. You can use this for Christmas or whatever, and gave them a check for $60,000. Now, we did not put that check in Kettle, so technically you could say we met the goal, but we just kind of put it in as a general contribution. But that just shows kind of that power of telling the story and letting people know we need your help, whether you can give us cash, you can add your gifts and services by teaching music lessons or helping in another way in the Corps, serving on the advisory board, or maybe volunteering. One incredible way to do that is by ringing the bell.
Could you just give a little short description of what direct services to the community means outside of like church ministry programs?
So Salvation Army assists last year over 27 million people in the United States, a number that is climbing actually. In the Northwest Division, 2 years ago we helped 500,000 people. Last year we helped 642,000. Wow. So need is increasing, which is something we actually did not expect after COVID. Yeah. People thought, COVID was going to be the high, kind of like, the donut days in World War I. Nothing will ever be as challenging as this time. But we're actually seeing need growing, especially in the area of food insufficiency, where the last 2 years in a row, our services, whether it's healthy, nutritious food through our Hope Market, Client Choice Pantries to people, or some home-delivered meals in a few places, or a hot served meal, a number of ways in which we help people with food, but up 40% a year, 2 years in a row. So direct service means are taking funds that is used to go directly to the individual. So in general, 84 cents out of every dollar that somebody contributes in a kettle or through a check or in a gift online goes in direct service. Interestingly enough, 100% of an emergency disaster gift goes out. We take no overhead, no staffing costs out of an emergency disaster gift, but 84 cents out of every dollar, which is up from about 20 years of it being 82.5%. So we're actually getting more efficient. And that is, again, just direct services to people. So it could be us purchasing food that goes right to a person. It could be the dollars that are used to pay someone's rent or electric bill. Or we have some unusual programs here in the greater Seattle area. One called Street Level, where we go out and go to people who live in their cars or living in doorways and tents. And we actually walk up to them and say, hey, are you interested in permanent housing? We're the Salvation Army. We're here to help. We say that without taking a breath. That's the opening statement. And then we take them from where they are at that moment and help them get on that journey towards stable, permanent housing that they can afford. That program houses over 1,000 families a year, and our success rate in the 5 years of that program is 97% still successfully housed. So, but as an example of direct service, when we go to a family, if you're living in your car, there's some reason, something that started that path that took you from your stable housing to your vehicle. And that could be sometimes as simple as you couldn't make rent 1 month, and now you owe a landlord $1,500 from 5 years ago. You've ruined your renter history, and you never can get ahead enough to pay off the $1,500 and have first and last rent and get going. So something that could be a $7,000 obstacle, you've now been living in your pickup for 5 years because you can never get ahead. We've had other families that started with somebody slit all their tires one night, and now I can't get to work, and then they fired me. And, most families only, they're 1 or 2 months away from literally being unhoused. So we can use direct service funds, direct assistance funds, to help those barriers, to pay off past rent, to get you the new tires or whatever that is. And quite often other agencies and definitely governmental programs, they can't help you with that, in essence, unusual circumstance. But that would be an example. So if we are $30,000 behind in a particular community in the Red Kettle campaign, that's $30,000 less dollars that will be used to help with rent assistance or pay light bills to keep someone, with heat in a pretty cold Seattle winter, or in some parts of our division where it's very hot, it's not safe, and it's, for example, for the elderly to be in a home where there's no air conditioning. Someone will die. And so that's part of what the Salvation Army does for direct assistance, and why the Red Kettle campaign still is so important. It's not only about the dollars raised, and every one of those $3.4 million is desperately needed, for the ministries that we do. But even more important, it's a sign of hope, right? The kettle is an iconic Christmas image of Christmas, and it reminds people that the Salvation Army is still there. If they don't live by a Salvation Army facility, or they haven't enjoyed our programs and services or joined us for worship, you may just kind of forget in the busyness of your day. No, the Salvation Army is still humbly, quietly helping people. But at Christmas, we remind people that we are here, and we want you to join us in whatever way you're comfortable to help us to be prepared to help your neighbor in need. Or, as we've seen lately, sometimes helping people who are working and who are housed, but just can't quite make their paychecks meet everything. So you never know when it might be you is the person that needs the Salvation Army's assistance.
Obviously, during Kettle season, with all the kickoffs, the Kettle kickoffs and what have you, you guys are traveling all throughout the division. With all that exposure, are there any stories that you might have heard during any of these events from people that resonated with you this time around?
Yeah, one of the ones that has stayed with me, it's actually a person who shared their story last year, and but it's just so iconic. It always tugs at my heart. This was a young man who, when he was about 10, he was old enough to understand that things were tight in their home. The father was suffering from some substance abuse issues, and the mom was working and doing all they could, and but he realized things weren't going well. This young man had 2 younger sisters and a pretty big age gap, and he was always kind of doing what he could to encourage him to try to make things easier for his mom, because he just realized there's a lot of tension in our home. And that fall, he heard at school that there was like a free lunch program. And in order at this school to participate in that, you could sign up to be the person that was like a cafeteria volunteer. So you'd get the free lunch, and he was not signed up for it by his parents normally, but that's just this program this school had. So he thought, this is the greatest thing. He knows that it was a stress point for his mom to provide lunch, and he thought, I could help the family. I'm going to sign up and be the kitchen worker. So he got free lunch. So he told his mom, he was so kind of proud that, Mom, you don't have to make me lunch anymore. I'm good. What he didn't realize is that they rotate that, and you can't be the lunch person all year long. So when that ran out in about November, like the end of first quarter, he didn't want to go tell his mom, I don't get that free lunch anymore. But what he noticed being in the cafeteria is that a lot of kids just don't like things and throw their food away. So he learned to kind of just hang around a little bit, never asked his teacher or the school for help. And he noticed that the food on the top of the garbage can isn't bitten. Now, this is before COVID. So for those of you who are freaking out,
Right.
this is a few years ago. And he said, it's not really dirty or touched. So he would just take what he felt was the best food off the top of the garbage can. And that was his way to help his family and to hopefully take away from the stress his mom was feeling. So that's kind of, the end of November. And then going into Christmas, he had no expectations that there's going to be Christmas.
Yeah.
He knows, but he was sort of pretending for his sisters, it's Santa Claus and all those things. But he had steeled himself like, I'm not going to be disappointed because I know we're not making it right now. Things are really tough. So he was so surprised, even Christmas Eve, as his sisters were thinking about stuff, there wasn't anything under the tree. And he's playing along, and he gets up the next morning, and there's gifts under the tree.
Mm.
And he went to his mom. Now, he's 10, so he had fun. And then afterwards, he said, Mom, there wasn't anything last night. What happened? And she said, somebody encouraged me to go to the Salvation Army. And I got things. Now, he's 10, and he got a Batman action toy.
Yeah.
Probably most 10-year-olds, even, again, 20 years ago, might not have been excited about a Batman action figure at 10 years old. But it was the idea that there was a gift and that his family had hope, that they had a good day, and it encouraged his mom. It was a huge deal for his mom to know we had Christmas. We provided something. And that started a journey for that young boy with the Salvation Army. They did find out there's music programs at this Salvation Army. And he enjoyed those and went on to actually, music is still a part of his adult life.
Oh, good.
And he learned, so he became connected with the Army in different ways, learned about summer camp, and their family got other kinds of assistance. But that story always stuck with me. And this year, it's maybe like a theme of stories where we see positions where children are being forced to provide for their family. For instance, across our division, we operate food pantries in 18 different schools. And that's because even with free breakfast, free lunch, schools are realizing that kids are going home, and on the weekend, there's nothing. So about 5 of those schools, it is more healthy snack-oriented foods because everything the school provides is still not quite enough, and kids can load up a little bit on the weekend. You get this, in 13 of the schools, it is actually easy to prepare foods because especially middle schoolers and high schoolers may be the ones that have to provide for themselves and their siblings on the weekend.
Yeah.
So macaroni and cheese and canned chicken and things. We work with the school counselors and the kids to make their kids can go in and do it anonymously in a way that doesn't take away from their dignity and confidentiality. But also counselors know kids who are struggling, or teachers see kids that are having attention issues potentially and know it actually may be because they're malnourished and or feeling hopelessness. And what happens at home on the weekend is actually, detracting from their well-being. So the Salvation Army being able to actually operate a food pantry in a school where a child can shop for your family is important. And I think the last story I'll tell you actually came from a media partner that we have. And he was touring actually our Hope Market food pantry in Renton. And we were doing a story about that program and about this new way of helping people in need where they can shop for themselves and we can reduce the waste of food because we can give you rotisserie chickens and all kinds of things that a grocery store would throw away.
Yeah.
And after doing this story, he was teasing me because I made him cry a little bit. And then when the camera stopped rolling, he kind of, pulled me to the side and he said, I don't usually tell this to people, but when I was a kid in our family, and he also grew up in the Northwest, he said, we had something in our house called Cream of Wheat Day. And he said, if my mom said we're having cream of wheat for dinner, we all knew what that meant. It meant she was down to the last dollar. It was probably late in the month, and she literally had nothing else. And I think most of us cannot understand what it means when there is nothing else. There's not a bag of noodles. There's not the stuff you don't like, or something old. There's nothing. So his mom kept a box of cream of wheat up on the top shelf, and they would sit around the table. He was also in a home where the father was not always present. And he said, me and my siblings, we all would have a mug and a spoon, and we'd sit around the table, and my mom would come over, and she'd pour some cream of wheat in every mug, and then she'd come with a tea kettle, and she'd pour some boiling water into every mug, and we'd all take our own spoon, and we would stir it, and so it could cook and do its thing. But we learned that you need to wait just a little bit because the weevils will rise to the top. And we just took them off with a spoon, and then we would enjoy our cream of wheat. And we knew our mom was doing the best she could.
Yeah.
And so his now being, a person that has a successful career, he did have intervention in their life. He, was able to go to college on a scholarship. He's obviously a successful media person. But he says, I'll never forget having cream of wheat. And then when he could now do stories about how the Salvation Army is actually helping kids just like him shop for their families and be able to support their hardworking parents, it's something that just moved him to tears because he wasn't in a place that had that when he was a young child. So I'm, really excited about what we could do, not with just the funds raised at Christmas, but with the support of the community and our hardworking volunteers, our officers, our staff members that help people all along, literally doing the most good with what we had, which is something God calls us all to do with our gifts and our talents and our experience and whatever resources that we give. But sometimes, again, those direct services people really do make a difference, even if it's just the hope to go on one more day. So that's something, again, all the listeners, make sure if they're in need or they know people in need, call the Salvation Army. If it's not something we can help with, we know who can. But we do care and we do want to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, that's something I didn't know. I didn't realize we did food pantry for schools, and that's amazing. One of the stories, we kind of said this in our newsletter, but one of my favorite things to do at Christmas time is our Kettle group goes around to various retirement communities and does like little concerts. And it's amazing this year, especially, of the amount of people who came up to us after and would tell us stories of how they came to know the Army. One specifically was actually from Mirabella here in Seattle, that her father ended up in a shelter somewhere in Carolina. I can't remember if it was North or South Carolina, and allowed him to get his life together and back on track and moved their family here to Washington. And, she's done well for herself and, since then. But it's just amazing the amount of people we come across who have similar experiences with the Salvation Army, of either it's recent or, a long time ago with their parents. The Salvation Army was able to be there and have an impact on their life. So, it's good to know. One of the sections we like to do to transition is we like to do a scripture of the season. Just something there. Is there a particular scripture verse that you're kind of leaning on this season, either, this season meaning it could be past season for Kettles or kind of in the new year now. Is there kind of a scripture verse you're kind of leaning on right now?
Currently, my verse would be the one that I consider probably my life verse for the last 30 or 40 years, and that's Colossians 3:23, which says, "Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men." So that resonates with me because I am one of those people that enjoys a high standard of excellence. I think we should shoot for the moon, which means shooting for God's glory. We should do the best we can with the time and the resource and the skills and experiences we have, but we should set the bar high and reach for that and kind of be in that mode of continual improvement.
Yeah.
So it's not about gaining perfection, but it's about doing the best that we can. And I think whenever that's our goal, it doesn't matter what you're doing, right? In ministry, at work, with your children, no task is really too small is if you see that you're literally living your life and doing it for the Lord. And when you read it in the NIV version, I love the word heartily. I think that's not an accident. So what if we all lived our lives and approached everything, every conversation, every task, every strategic plan from our heart, a heart for God? That changes your lens. It changes your approach to like how you're going to talk to somebody or how you're going to make a decision, the amount of effort you're going to put into something. Yeah. If we live and work from our heart to glorify God in all that we do, then the right things will get done. It'll be done in an excellent way. God will be praised. People's lives will be changed and touched. And I think we'll always feel good about our contribution. Doesn't mean we'll always be the winner or the best. But I think many times if we think about how we spend our time or the effort we put into things, how often do we do the best we can with what we have? I think we often don't. So that is a verse that resonates with me and something that I aim to do with my life.
Bouncing out of the Christmas season, and so obviously now we're in the new program year, do you have any hopes, any sort of aspirations or dreams that you see coming to fruition for this program year, the rest of this program year, maybe leading us into the summertime, be it at a core level, maybe selfishly speaking from the music and arts department, the encore, something like that? What do you have in mind for this program year?
Well, there's a couple of things that are like strategic goals that we are working on. One is it's very important for us as a division. Our theme is tell the story. And I'm actually not a fan of exclamation points. I do not overuse exclamation points in my writing.
I do.
But in this case, tell the story it's tell the story, exclamation point. With engagement, with enthusiasm. Are we really telling the story of God's gospel message and his love? Are we really telling the story of what the Salvation Army, what programs and services we provide in the local community? Are we really telling the story of how efficient we could be with your donated dollar, or how we could utilize 2 hours of your volunteer time to make the difference for someone? So our goal throughout the year is to tell the story. And a big part of what we're doing right now is making sure that we are actually doing that, being true to the mission of the Salvation Army. Do we actually find ways to build relationships, to include the gospel story, to include invitations to our programs, to even educate the community about the programs and services that we provide? So our goal is to do that with everyone we come into contact with. And every corps actually created a plan that at the time we called Kingdom Building Plans. So we're reviewing those now with every corps as we go through the corps review process and sharing best practices. And there's already been some really incredible things happen. It's so easy. For instance, if somebody comes in and says, hey, I heard you guys pay utility bills. Can I get some help? Do we make sure that the person who's at the front desk is trained and they know to always give every person who comes in a brochure about our programs and services? Do we have an attractive brochure about our programs and services that we could give to people? When somebody comes in to shop at our Hope Markets and we're walking around and they're selecting, again, this healthy, nutritious food for their family, and we notice they have 3 or 4 kids, does the volunteer or the staff member who's walking with them say, number one, are we having conversation to get to know them? But are we saying, oh, you have 3 kids. Do you know that we have summer camp? Do you know that we have music lessons and we have a children's choir? And do you know we have an after-school program? Or we're doing a Christmas play in a few months. Would you love to come and join us? There's so many opportunities where we do have a contact with person and we're making it a transactional relationship. Yeah, we're busy, but it's really too easy to just say, I can't do it, or I forgot, or whatever. It's not rocket science. It's actually very easy. You sit down, you have a strategy. You make sure you train volunteers at your staff meeting every week or every month. You remind everybody who comes here gets this brochure. If we see them 4 times a month, they're going to get the brochure 4 times.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe the 300th time we give it to them, maybe their children will see it and say, Mom, what is this camp thing?
Yeah.
I would love to go to camp. So that's a big thing of what we're doing. Building relationships. Salvation Army is never going to force anyone to listen to the gospel message. We don't exchange a hot meal for a sermon. We don't do that. But we do want to show God's love in what we're doing.
Yeah.
Not just in the services that we give you, but in the way that we talk with you and treat you. And again, try to build relationship. Even if it's only so when the family has maybe a larger crisis. Who are you going to want to turn to in that maybe the darkest day of your life? You're going to want to turn to a person who treated you with love and respect. And we want to be there. But we have to open that door so people will come to us. Or they may say, you know what? I don't know what to do anymore. Would you pray with me? Do we at any time know who in the building would be willing to pray with somebody, even if they're coming to us for another reason? So that's something I'm very excited about. We continue to check in with the core because it's always evolving. People are thinking of really new and creative ways to, again, open the door to be able to share the gospel if people are interested in that, but also just sharing the gospel in ways that we're doing, making sure that we're including, teaching about God's word in our scouting programs and when we do gather with people. So that's something I'm very excited about. We're also, we're just 1 or 2 program centers away from having all of our food pantry operations in this new client choice style with our new branding called Hope Markets. Yeah. So people have never seen one before, don't understand that. You don't have to have a big grocery store like we just about do in Great Falls, Montana, and Bellingham. It can even be a modest room like we have in Federal Way or Anacortes, where we have like reach-in refrigerators and reach-in freezers. So we literally can take healthy salads and prepared lasagna or that rotisserie chicken I was talking about that doesn't sell at the grocery store on a Tuesday night. We can pick it up on Wednesday morning. It could be on someone's table for dinner Wednesday night when normally that would be thrown away. Yeah. So I firmly believe there is enough food. God does say there are enough resources for everybody. We believe He will provide for our needs. And our Hope Markets are an incredible way not only to reduce this waste of food, but to have food that's appropriate for everyone. So if you are literally unhoused, we're not just giving you granola bars, and peanuts. We can give you that healthy salad or a sandwich or something, and we can give you shelf-stable food as well. If you're a family living in Hotel by the Week, which unfortunately is more common than people think, children and parents, living in something where they only have a microwave and everybody's sleeping in one room. We can give you food that, again, healthy food that you can cook in a microwave or on a hot plate. So you're not just eating convenience foods and things. Or if you're a family where you do have an apartment or a home, it helps us to meet people's cultural needs and dietary preferences or dietary needs.
Yeah.
It is America, right? And America, we are a little pickier than some other places in the world. But the bigger thing is our Hope Markets are attractive. Again, they're set up like a grocery store. Most of them have shopping carts. The ones with little shields on them are my favorite.
Yeah.
And so this idea that we can meet you with the highest dignity, when you can shop for yourself and feel just like everybody else, buy some of the same kinds of foods. And I must say, there have been times that I have been in our Hope Markets, and there are foods there that we're giving. We're not talking about spotted bananas and stuff about to expire. We're talking about like the raspberries and blackberries that I thought about buying yesterday, but at $4.99 did not choose to do so.
Right.
And we're giving that out to families. Diapers, things that people really need. So we're down to just the last couple that have not been converted to the new Hope Market model. And several of ours have actually gotten grants, and we're going to be doing huge refreshes. So they'll be able to, again, not only be bright and opening, but have incredible space where people can come into, for say, a computer lab and print documents that they need to print. An attractive space where we could sit down with them and talk. Many of them even have children's corners. So for moms, especially, parents with toddlers possibly where they can't afford childcare, we actually have positive things that the kids can do, while their parents are getting assistance that's crucial to their lives. So those are some things I'm really excited about, making sure that we're always meeting people in a relational manner. We're opening the door to be able to get to know them so they can share many times bigger challenges that are going on in their life than that utility bill.
Yeah.
And open that door to a relationship that we hope will help them to lead a long-term stable lives, and maybe if they choose at some point, be opening to listen to the gospel message.
Yeah. It's all about intentionality.
Yes.
What we do.
A very good word.
Yeah. Knowing your competitive spirit, you mentioned camp. So I have to bring it up. We do camps, all summer. We do 3-4 camps every summer. There's another title other than being the best in kettle season in the territory. Camp numbers wise, we also had quite an accomplishment. Would you?
We did.
Mind?
That's been another goal. Our whole 4 years, but really starting last year. Us coming to the Northwest right as COVID ended in Washington. COVID lasted a long time in the state of Washington.
Yeah.
And so we came just as a lot of the public gathering requirements were lifted. So many people who are in the camping industry know COVID decimated camping. Parents were a little less, little less confident about sending kids. We lost several years of teenagers that were probably just about ready to be staff members, and now, they had aged out or they'd gone a different direction in their life. So we went from, record highs about 12 years ago with number of kids going to camp to kind of start over in some of our places. So we had a very intentional approach to be able to make sure, number one, that every unit sent kids to camp, and that we were telling the story about our summer camp ministry wide and far, because I firmly believe there are kids out there, there's parents out there who would love to have their kids have this opportunity. They just don't know that the Salvation Army does this, and that we do it usually for low or no cost at all. So last year, the results of that were 1,400 young people in the Northwest Division attended a week of residential summer camp. And if you add a camping ministry that the Coeur d'Alene Croc Center has, where they include one night of overnight camping is part of their day camp program, that was another 300 kids. So that was the division that sent the most kids to camp. We have 2 camps open right now, and so we're looking forward. So 1,400 was great, but that's not anywhere near our capacity.
Yeah.
So this year, I'm hoping that we'll beat that in the dust, that more kids will come. And we're also working with some creative partners about potentially bringing some military children to Camp Arnold and doing some other things to get kids to come. So that's something I'm super excited about. Also, every corps in Montana sent kids to camp, something I'm very excited about. So lots of good things coming up with our summer camp ministry.
I too am very competitive, so that was good to know about our summer camp. So if those listening are from other divisions, Gauntlet is thrown. You have a challenge now to beat us, the Great Northwest Division, in your summer camp ministry. Let's see what we can do for the kingdom of God and our communities this summer. We like to end our time with some shout-outs. We just like to, whether it's exceptional core groups or individuals, we just like to take a moment just to give a shout-out to people in our division. Do you have anyone that you'd like to give a shout-out to?
I do. Kind of went with one of your other questions. One of our other goals for the divisions we've done the last 2 years is have what we call the Christmas Gospel Outreach. And that was during the months of November and December, every corps needs to find some creative way that they're going to share the gospel with the people that we meet at Christmas time, which, as we've been saying over the podcast, is the time that we interact with the most people in the course of the year. And people have a lot of creative ways. Many corps do 2 or 3 outreaches and not just the one that we shared. You'd be surprised. I think this year we encountered something like 17,000 people came just to our Christmas Gospel Outreach events, whether that's through a prayer tree at Christmas distribution or a people doing a Santa, like an extra Santa breakfast, where, again, they not only greeted the public warmly, but the gospel message was shared in an open, non-threatening way. So my shout out would go to, since you guys are with the music department, on a music theme a little bit, but something I'm really excited about is that this year, on top of other very creative things, 9 of our corps, so it's a third, 30% of our corps actually did a Christmas musical or recital.
Which is great.
Yes. Any of you who have gone through Salvation Army Christmas know it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
And it's just a busy time. And to pull off the work for a recital or a Christmas play, it's adding on the top. And, we used to do it when we were young corps officers, and people love it, right? And it's important because moms and grandma's hearts are very warm at Christmas. And sometimes people who will never come to church will come to see their neighbor or their grandchild or their own children in a Christmas play. Yeah. So it's, a creative, inviting way, non-threatening way to share the gospel message and God's word with people. So my shout-outs are going to go to the 9 corps, Seattle White Center, Olympia, Seattle Temple, Spokane, Eastside, Everett, Great Falls, Puyallup, and Federal Way. Several of these corps do excellent music programs all throughout the year and really utilize their kids in worship and in bell ringing and just all kinds of creative ways to encourage them to either explore gifts of music or to be able to actually refine those, might lead to future careers or definitely through music ministry. They're all incredible, and I always try to go to as many as I can. I want to give an extra star to the Great Falls Corps, which has not had a robust children's ministry in many years. Yeah. They've not had a music ministry in, I cannot tell you when. So the fact that the Great Falls Corps, Majors Mike and Nancy Halverson and their incredible corps assistant Cosmos, were able to work with kids, not just kids in an after-school program, but also community children, and do a Christmas play and share the gospel message is just an incredible above and beyond. But that's what, that's an example of Colossians 3:23. When we work from the heart to please God and to use the gifts and resources he gives us for his glory and for his kingdom good, God takes those offerings and he blesses that. Yeah. And the fact that we have 20 plus kids who have God's word in their heart, who had that joy of getting over, fears and being out in public and doing some public speaking and those life skills that are really important. and that they felt like they were the star, even if it's just for a few moments. Those are divine gifts. That's godly ministry. So excited about the Corps that are taking those extra efforts. And a few of these people, these officers, are not musical themselves.
Right.
So they, again, did the best they can for God's glory, but also they're bringing people who could help, which is something I firmly believe in as well, that, especially speaking to the officers in the room or youth leaders, you don't have to be musical to have an incredible music ministry or arts ministry in your Corps. There are people in your community that will be willing to come alongside you. You might have to be inconvenienced.
Yeah.
You might have to trade out somebody to be a music teacher for rehearsal space for free. Yeah. And it might mean you have to unlock the building on Thursday night when you'd rather sit at home. But again, where there's a will, there's a way. And I love finding ways that we can include young people and the community in our ministry. And sometimes those partners come to us, with their professional skills, and they hear the gospel as well. So again, whatever we do, when we work heartily for the glory of the Lord and not for men, God will bless, his mission is accomplished, and God's kingdom grows.
Yeah. Keith, do you have a shout out?
I do. Yeah. I think for me, at least, it comes down to what they've done since joining the division. So I'm going to shout out Captains Kane out of Spokane, just because their scope of responsibility is so huge between the Corps, the social services aspect, the community aspect, and the camp that they have to run. But ever since they got here, it seems like they have been here for years. The way that the community responds with them, the Kettle event 2 years ago comes to mind as far as Captain David's up there, and it sounds like he's known these people his entire life. The way he's talking about them, talking with them, speaking with everyone. Same thing goes for this last time around. How they navigated their first time at camp, running their own camp this last summer. It's just overall really impressive stuff that they're capable of. So I'm gonna shout out Captains Kane from Spokane.
Yeah, my shout out would this is fairly biased, and I apologize, but I work with Olivia Guja from Seattle Temple. I give her private lessons, and we've been working together for about 1.5 years now. And over the last couple lesson times, she's preparing for Solo Ensemble Festival. Olivia's from Seattle Temple, and she's really starting to really understand what we've been talking about. And so, her playing has jumped up a level, and I wish I could work with more kids individually, but she's just one of them that I'm able to work with right now. And just that level of growth that she's shown in the last 6 months since summer has really been good to hear for me in my ear, and kind of good as a teacher. And I wonder if she's aware, oh man, I am getting better. Before, I wasn't able to do this, but now I am. And so, hopefully I'm making that clear to you, Olivia, that you are improving. You're doing a great job. But if not, let it be known here. She's doing a wonderful job, and she has Solo Ensemble Festival next Saturday on the 8th. So I'm hoping to be able to catch that. Another shout out, sorry, I have two, would be Jacob Dove. He's going to be graduating high school soon, and he will be off to join, I think is the Navy. I'm sorry if that's not correct, but I think it's the Navy, and he will not be joining us for any kind of summer camp ministries as he's shipping off to basic training. But my family is big in the military. My mom did 21 years. My dad did 20 years. So he's going to the appropriate branch. At least it's the Navy. It's not the Air Force where they don't do anything. And I'm just joking. Thank you to all our service people. You are fantastic. One last question off the cuff. This is not prepared, which is intentional, but retirement is not too far off. It's not tomorrow, but it's not years now. I think it's down to single 1 year.
Yes, if you ask my husband, he could tell you the days.
Yeah,
It's basically 18 months. 17 months maybe.
Yeah. Are you looking towards anything specific? It's widely known that you like farm animals and goats specifically and stuff like that. I think you grew up in or around a farm, I think.
I grew up on a farm.
On a farm.
In a small farming community, Pendleton, Oregon, with more cows than people.
Is there anything specifically that you're looking forward to in retirement, whether that's hanging around goats, or hopefully it's retirement and not some post-work retirement? Hopefully you can, when you retire, you're done.
We could take a wager on that. Do you think I will probably work in retirement? Looking forward to it. I've got to say I'm not one of those people. I do not think about it every day. I'm not looking at houses every day. I got plenty of things to do right now, and I occupy to the last moment. And I never stop caring. I won't meddle later, but I always care. And I'm always interested in places because we invest ourselves. Our plan is to relocate to Vancouver, Washington, which will be near my siblings. And 2 of our children will be there. One is there already. The other one is coming.
Oh,
Victoria.
Okay, nice.
And our currently the only grandson is there, so that's always important, right? So we'll live in that area, and my husband is looking forward. He has already made a connection. He loves acting and commercials and things like that in his spare time. And the weather, and he's a weatherman. So he will continue his weather studies and predictions. And he has his own. He's now considered by Facebook to be a creator. I'm not sure if you've heard that.
Wow.
Foley forecasts on Facebook. So,
Awesome.
So he'll continue to do that. And I am looking forward to like being able to get up in the morning at the time you want. I am looking forward to that. And not having to put my hair in the bun. I don't mind it now, but I am looking forward to that. But probably in retirement, we've actually also made connections. We have decided we're not going to buy a small acreage, despite Tim thinking all these decades like that would be a good idea.
Right.
The person who's never lived on a farm. I would love it, but it is way more expensive than you think.
Yeah.
And I know that firsthand, having grown up. So looking forward to, I've already made a couple connections with people who have goats and cattle and horses. I do need my emotional support livestock visits.
Yep.
Likely we will have golden retrievers again. We've always been a golden retriever family. So would love to do that. Maybe even breed puppies. We'll see how big a yard we get. And probably actually will want to work in retirement, probably for vacation money. So I can travel. We love to travel and walk around and experience new things. So, I would like to have something that would allow us to be able to do that. And with that, I do love, media and fundraising and public relations. So whether I do that in, like professionally in retirement, or I will always be the kind of person that is open. I'm always a text or a phone call away. Hence, I get many, many texts a day, but I love to sit down with people and kind of problem solve with them and figure out how can we help more people in our community? How can we raise more money? How can we recruit more volunteers? How can we find a way that every person who comes to our core finds out about our programs and finds a way to be comfortable and potentially not only become part of us, part of the Army, in the way that they want to, but maybe part of the kingdom of God. So whether I'm supporting people, with pastoral care or helping them with special projects, and whether I do that for fun or I do that in post-retirement work, that's something I'm looking forward to as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. And thank you, listeners, for catching episode 4 on the Beyond the Sound podcast. We've appreciated having Lieutenant Colonel Cindy Foley, current Divisional Commander of the Northwest Division. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you, and Happy New Year, and God's blessing to you.
In the heart of the rain and evergreen trees, the mountains meet the sea, a place of peace. Melodies rising like the morning mist. We gather to learn beyond the sound, beyond the stage. We lift our voices, turn the page. A symphony of love, unbound here in the PNW. We go beyond the sound. From blast to brush, from strings to song, every hand and heart finds where they belong. And every note and color, every line and beat, we build a world where souls can meet. Beyond the sound, beyond the sound, beyond the stage. We lift our voices, turn, we lift our voices, turn the page. A symphony of love, unbound here in the PNW. We go beyond the sound. From brass to brush, from strings to song, every hand and heart finds where they belong. In every note and color, every line and beat, we build a world where souls can meet. Beyond the sound, beyond the sound, beyond the stage. We lift our voices, turn,